Okay, so just before the break, we sort of just started getting connected to our remote server, and I think that if you've worked with RSelenium before, then you'd realize what a big step this sort of containerization of the Selenium server has been in actually being able to use Selenium. So, I think we learned a little bit about Docker and some basic commands, and I hope you can now run these containers on their own. Okay, so let's get going. So the first thing you'll notice, I think that's starkingly obvious, is the way these functions look. Okay, so you're applying methods over classes. So it's not your normal way of interacting with our objects. So I'm just going to show you quickly. So for this session, I'm gonna keep my VNC on the side, and I'm going to be running commands in the console over here. Okay, so we've sort of got a Chrome running. One quick tip is, it is tempting to move your mouse and start playing with your mouse in your viewer. I highly discourage that. It can get confused and then completely crash. So try and avoid clicking and typing in the viewer itself. We're going to drive it completely from R. Okay, so the big one that we need to know is navigate. Okay, so how we're going to do this is I'm going to use my RMDR, which is class a remote driver from the Selenium package. I'm going to apply the method of navigating. So I'm going to navigate, okay, to www.google.com. I think it wants HTTPS. There we go. Sometimes it can be quite fussy. Okay, so you see that this command has now taken me to the Google page. Okay, so one thing that also took me quite a while to sort of get used to in this package is one of my favorite things about R is the F1 command. So I don't know if you guys know what that does. Anyone? Shout out. What? Help. Exactly, help, right? So let's do the same with this navigation. Navigate. Oh, okay, that does not work. And now, how are you supposed to know what methods you can actually apply across this remote driver? So sneakily enough, if you just delete the brackets and you look at the code of the function, then it leads to a little bit more information. So now we can actually say, oh, okay, it's a class method definition for method navigate to a given URL. This took me like 4 to 5 months to figure out, to actually know how to figure out how these functions actually work. So if you find a function through basic trial and error, so maybe we look at, what does delete cookies do? Well, delete all cookies visible to the current page. And that's sort of how you get a feeling of what each of these functions are actually going to be doing. Okay, so let's navigate a little bit more. Okay, so I'm at Google at the moment. I'm going to actually go to Bing. Okay, now I'm at Bing. Okay, that's quite cool. So I can type in any URL, and we are going to go to the web page. So, but what if I want to go back now? So either I can say, well, navigate back to Google, or I can say, well, go back. And then you can go back, or you can go forward. And this it seems quite trivial from the look of it, but you might find that sometimes in pages you do not know where you are. So you don't necessarily know where you are on the page, how many links you've clicked. You only know that you can go back and you can go forward. So knowing the URL doesn't really help you. Especially in some of these dynamically loaded web pages, the URL doesn't tell you much. It's usually just like an access token that gets passed around. So using the URL to navigate, as was the case with Rvest, is not really the way that RSelenium works. So we're going to use backwards and forwards quite often. So you're going to kick the server off and navigate, and then you're going to drive it around. Okay, so basic functionality, navigate, back and forward. So another big part of Selenium is being able to pass keys to your machine. I'm going to get VNC up here again. Okay, so at the moment, I'm at Bing. Okay, I want to actually go down to Google. So let me quickly navigate to Google. RMDR, and I'm going to say go back. Okay, so now I'm at Google. I can also do basic functions. So let's go, I think a nice one to go to is that FBI website, FBI.org. That's quite strange. Let's try the CIA's website. Oh, .gov. Thanks. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we've got this view of the web page, but one of the things is we cannot click and we cannot interact if we can't see something. So what are some things at the bottom of the page? For that, we'll have to actually navigate down to the page. So first of all, I'm going to use then a command here. Let me quickly just break this down for you, called send keys to active element. So what does this do? It sends a sequence of keystrokes to the active element. This is a command similar to send keys, etc., etc., etc. So to get an idea or feeling of what keys are available to us, you can use RSelenium and then 3 colons, so the ones that are not sort of exposed or exported. We can look at names, and then I just get the head. So let's actually get all of them quickly. So how cool is that? You can set help, backspace, tabs, separators, all the F keys, and the most importantly, obviously, left arrow, down arrow, up arrow, your basic commands. So if I'm going to use RSelenium to move around, I can pipe a whole list of keys down. So I can say, give me a list of key page down, and then you can see I actually page down. I can do it again, page down, or I can scroll down. I think this will work. Oh no, we'll do scrolling a little bit later. I think it's down arrow. There we go. So smaller keys, and we can go down. So the same goes for keys such as end. I can go to the bottom of the page, or I can go back to the top of the page. So you can start getting a feel of, how would you move around the page? Oh, I know, I need to go down, maybe, 2 tabs, and then my information would usually be there. Another really nice thing about Selenium is you can pass JavaScript to it. So if you know a little bit of JavaScript, then it becomes really interesting, the kind of things you can do. So if I'm going to pass the script to it called execute script return Windows scroll Y. Okay, so I'm looking there and I'm going to run this. Okay, 0. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to page down a bit, and I'm going to do this command again. Okay, so why do you think I would use this command? Anyone? Why would I execute a command that returns for me the window scroll? Exactly, right? So some pages will dynamically keep loading, and you know, so you can, and if you keep telling it, well, scroll, so end, okay, and I look at what my scrolling is, okay, well, it's 3,900 and something, and I say, well, give me page down, 3948, okay, so I know that my like you said, my conditional scrolling is now at the end, because sometimes you don't know how long the page is, you know, and that gives you a little bit of an idea of how far you've actually scrolled down. So you're using commands and building small commands like this become really important in RSelenium, because it can become very verbose, but they're also very important. The same for the scrolling height. So this will also give you an idea of how big the page is that you've actually been, that's been loaded. So you combine the scrolling of Y with the scroll height of the document to get a sort of quantitative view of where you are in a document. So another nice two sort of keys, or sort of keys that you might, or executing scripts that you might want to sort of learn, is the window sizes, right? So at first it doesn't seem that obvious, you know, like, okay, it's 1040 by 875, but you know, sometimes the web page can change for the size of it, you know, so inherently there's a ton of JavaScript commands that you can pass to RSelenium that'll actually run and actually give you information back. So I highly recommend you learn a tiny bit of JavaScript as well on the side when learning Selenium, because it really helps sort of build and expand your RSelenium arsenal. Okay, and then the big ones, like I said, active element, you know, going home and end really helps a lot, especially if you're needing to load pages. But again, you might also find that pressing end to load a page and then pressing end again and trying to load the page like that might actually break it because you're loading too much too fast. So if that happens, just go back to the page down type of scrolling. Okay, so Selenium gives us a really awesome way in order to interact with it and send keys to the browser. Okay, so it's really nice getting, you know, driving around in really basic commands, but we also want to interact with the DOM, you know, and there's like a clear divide of what RSelenium's role is in your scraper and what Rvest is supposed to do. Okay, so RSelenium is going to drive us around, it's going to load the page, it's going to find elements, click elements, you know, so we're going to interact with it. But we don't necessarily want to use it for the manipulation of the DOM itself in terms of getting the nodes. For that, we have Rvest again. Okay, so for instance, this is my page, I'm at the FEI, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this function called page source. So page source gets us that current page source. That's almost the same as saying read HTML. Okay, so you know, we needed RSelenium to dynamically load the objects for us. We've got it now. Now we're going to pass that object into RSelenium, from RSelenium into read HTML. And to be honest, I would almost wrap this function because you're going to use it so often, and you know, it always returns a list. So remember to pass it the driver. Okay, so get HTML, and then I can now tell it that get HTML, and there we go. And now we're back in the realm of RVest, where we can, use RVest to extract certain nodes or certain elements. So one thing you need to see is that with RSelenium, we're also changing and interacting with the DOM. So you have to be very careful when structuring your functions, so that you make sure that certain functions have consequences. So you have to keep that in mind, and you'll see in a little bit what I mean by that. Okay, so the other way we might want to do is we might want to actually click and navigate. So let's go back to Google. Okay, so here I'm at Google. Okay, so now the trick of the matter is, how am I going to find this element that I need to click on in order to type? Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to actually go to Google in my browser. Okie dokie. Okay, so using my little selector here to inspect, I can see that this box is this class.gsfi. Okay, so I'm going to use CSS now to capture that specific element using RSelenium. So again, just go to Google, press F12, play around a little bit until you find that object and you can actually see it in the HTML. So GSFI. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my driver, I'm going to pass the method find element, I'm going to use class.gsfi, and now something amazing is going to happen. I'm going to tell it highlight this element for me. Ooh, close. Wait. And now I know I have the correct element. Okay, so these kind of feedback mechanisms also work really nice in RSelenium, because you might think that you have a certain object or certain node selected, and then you select it, and then suddenly something highlights you in the corner, and you're like, oh, okay, there must be a couple of them, I need to be a little bit more specific. So again, I find the element, and I highlight the element. Do you also see that I've moved from this RM drive, so this remote driver class, to this web element class? So now I'm actually working with a web element, not a driver anymore. Okay, so I've got this web element, and I can pass commands or run commands over this web element. So it's different from my driver. So it's quite a big distinction between those two. Okay, so the cool thing is, like, once we've isolated the specific element, we can now start interacting with it. Okay, so the remote driver, that's our car, and all these web elements are all our nice little functions, hooters and indicators and all kinds of stuff, if I have to use an analogy. So if I want to actually click this element, so if I know exactly what element I've isolated, now I can say click element. And the nice thing about clicking is you can even do a couple of methods of clicking. So I think if you use click tells you that click any mouse at the coordinates set by the last move to mouse, okay, button, but you've got left click, middle click, and right click. So you can do all kinds of weird mousey clicks with once you've isolated that element. So I'm going to click the element. Okay, so I've clicked it, so I know now that I've clicked that box and I can actually send text to that box. Okay, so I'm going to use another quick command. I'm going to move my mouse to that location. Okay, so my mouse is here on the side. Okay, you won't see it, but it's actually moved the focal point on longer pages. You'll see it actually move the mouse to that specific location. Okay, so because the reason is that you might know what element you want to click in a page, and the element might be a few pages down, but you trying to click on that element, if it's not been loaded or not in view, it can't click it. So you can't click anything that is not being in that is not actually in the viewer itself. So again, a nice little script that I like to use. So you can use the move mouse to location by passing it a web element, but I find this script, thank you Stack Overflow, way more powerful. So you just use this, again, execute the script, pass it the element, and then it will scroll to that specific page or piece of the object in the page. And I think we'll see that a little bit later. So again, you can have a small function which can be something like scroll to, and you have to remember to pass it the driver and the web element. Okay, so that's like a nice little function that, as we're moving through the pages and we're wanting to click on certain elements, it's going to bring that element into view so we can highlight it, see that it's it, and then we're going to click it. Okay, so far we've learned to move around, and we've actually clicked on the search bar in Google. So now we want to search something, right? So what are we going to search for? I think let's search for the World Cup. Okay, so World Cup 2018. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my web element, so the element I've isolated. I'm going to use send keys to active element. Okay, so again, send a sequence of keystroke, and importantly, I'm going to pass it as a list of parameters. So it needs to be a list of parameters. So I'm going to pass it this World Cup. Hold on. I think I forgot to add my element here. There we go. That's quite strange. Key string should be a string. I might oh, really? I think it's because I want to do a multiple. Thanks. Yeah, so if you're using multiples, oh, there we go. So it's the, okay, so there I've clicked it. Oh, I've sent the text to it, but I also want to send the key to it. So I want to send it the text to say, okay, look up the World Cup, and then send the specific key, which is the enter key, along with it. Okay. Let me just scroll this into view, and then enter, and then voila. Okay, you can also send all of this in one go. So you can tell it, give me World Cup, and then give me the key, enter. So if we go back to Google, and I use this notation now, where I'm sending it the list, and the list is the text element, and then the key, you will see it enters it, and then goes to it. And from here, we can move around again, going to the end of the page, going up a bit, and interacting and driving around on a little page. Okay, so now I want to show you some like nice to have functions. So functions that, you know, over time I've come to use often, and sort of has helped a lot whenever I collect things. So the first one is maximum window size. So, you know, we know what the size was earlier. It was 800 by, there we go, 875 by 140. And if we execute maximum window, it's now maximized that window, and we can see, there we go, what the new sort of aspect ratio of that window is. Another really good one is get title. So here you can see it says, well, it's a World Cup 2018 Google search. So I sometimes find that, you know, I'm moving around pages programmatically, and then I need to reassure myself that I'm at a certain point where I think I'm supposed to be. So then I usually just I say, okay, get me the title of that page, you know, and I just do a quick check, you know, okay, am I right? Okay, yes, continue, you know, because if you're not right, something has gone wrong, but your sort of server is doing something strange. So I use get title quite often to just have a quick look to see where I am. Another nice one is screenshot. So let's say we didn't have the VNC, right? You only had RStudio. Then you can actually use screenshot to have a look at what Selenium is actually seeing. In the same sort of breath, you know, you can take screenshot, you can save it to a specific object, and then you have to use rcurl to decode it, and then you can write that screenshot to the folder. So maybe you're looking to save certain pictures, and you can't directly maybe save or get the links of those pictures, then you can use RSelenium to collect the specific pictures. So this should be, yeah, and there you can see, there's my screenshot. So sort of saving pictures, and again scroll into view. So like I said, I usually make sort of functions from the screenshot. The scroll into view becomes quite important. Yeah, moving to locations and so on. Okay. Okay, so, you know, I think that's something that's blaringly obvious is the way this code sort of feels and looks. It can sort of start feeling clunky, you know, because it's line for line, and you know, you'd rather go back to your tidyverse root and you want to pipe. So there is a library called Selenium Pipes. Let me show you a bit. So there's some basic operations on here. I found it's a little bit buggy, so I have tried to work with it and seeing if I can build pipelines, but I find that it sort of breaks down really quickly in terms of what I wanted to do. So my suggestion is to just build your own, you know, build your own pipes. So when you do that, where's this thing now? When you do that, you have to be aware that the state of the page might have changed. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So if we look at this little function that I've built, which is navi, which is just navigating the page. Okay, so if I run this command, okay, I'm going to navigate there. Now, I'm just going to navigate to Bing from here. Again, okay, so what it's saying is it can't apply that function again. So you have to return this RM driver. It's going to go and it's going to go on. You know, so there's small little things that we used to in dplyr where we can just say, oh, you know, take this data frame and then. But with RSelenium, because that driver object, the state of it changes, you have to make sure that if that is that sort of state dependent object, if you pass it along again and it is needed, you need to return it explicitly again. Whereby other functions, which is quite nice, maybe sort of take a picture. You don't need to do that because it only has that sort of side effect, you know. So you can just say, well, take my remote driver, get a maximum window size, get a title, and then take a screenshot. You know. So I think, you know, once you're getting comfortable with RSelenium, you are going to want to start building your own pipelines, and just keep in the back of your mind that you have to pass the driver or the web element along as you go. Especially if you sort of want to push your drivers into using Rvest or you know, one of those kind of packages, then make sure that you pass, you know, you bring back your driver and you bring back your page source. But yeah, so that is a little bit more sort of advanced applications of RSelenium. But I think what I want to get to is this idea of, you know, RSelenium is, in the end of it all, you know, it's supposed to do sort of the heavy lifting, okay? And Rvest is your tool for fine-tuning. So don't try and make RSelenium do something that it was never meant to do. You know, you're not supposed to find, break down certain nodes and do all kinds of crazy stuff with Selenium. Selenium is supposed to drive you around the page, maybe load it a little bit, and then pass the finer sort of details onto Rvest. Okay, so like I said, most of the work is getting it started. And once you've got that, there's some nice commands that we've just learned. So I enjoy wine. And coming to Australia, I was like, okay, let me get sort of a better idea of the winelands in Australia. So for those of you who don't know, Australia is actually quite famous for its wines. So I was keen to find out a little bit more about the wine region. Okay, so what I'm doing is I want to go to Vivino. Let me show you. For those of you who don't know it, it looks like this. So it's a little app which you have on your phone and you can rate wines. So, you know, what I was interested in, I'm going to go here and I'm going to look at some wines. Obviously I need to click on this button called Show Wines to get me to this page. Okay, so there's already a bit of a clicking going on that we need to figure out. Okay, next, you know, we can see all of the wines over here, and then down here I can actually, you know, let's say it wasn't there, I can actually filter and look at wines from Australia. And they've got quite nice information. I mean, I can see this from Barossa Valley, I can see the number of ratings, what this wine was rated, you know, and what year the wine is as well, well, most of the time. Okay, so me being an R user, you know, I'm not satisfied with doing this once or twice. I want to get some more information. So we can actually use RSelenium to grab a little bit of the wines in this app and then hopefully build a little database for myself. So when I go back to the wine store, I have a bit better idea. Okay, so first of all, we can see the web link, right? So we don't want to be naughty. So I'm just going to have a little bit of look using robots to see if I can actually scrape this website. So if we go to RStudio, robots, okay, get robot text. Okay, so domain is Vivino Explore. So you can see there on top. I'm going to have a look. 404, come on. That's quite strange. Anyway, I had a nice look earlier, and it actually said I'm allowed to scrape this piece of Vivino. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is any sort of big scraping project that you attend, you have to build a little mind map for yourself. So I think, I'm going to give you literally 2 minutes to go to Vivino quickly and then think about how or what the plan is for you to actually collect information off of the site. So go to Vivino, go to Vivino Explore. Oh, actually, I think you can start here. Yeah, I think start at vivino.com because it makes it a little bit more interesting. And then, write down a little diagram for yourself on how you think you'll go about processing information off of this site. Okie dokie. So, let's have a look. So I think you two who's on the AWS machines, I think you will see something different when you go to vivino.com. I think the American version is a bit different. Just have a look in your viewer. Okay, so, this is how I thought about it, very crudely, in my little 5 minutes of thinking how we should go about this. But this is what went on in my mind. I said, okay, we're going to go to Vivino. Then I need to click on this show wine button, okay, and then from the show wine, there's these sort of functions that I need to build that gets me the wine farm, the wine price, maybe the ratings, and then I need to scroll down a little bit, get some more loaded, because the page loads dynamically, and then return back up, and then again collect the information. So any sort of collection, that project you take on, I recommend writing a little mind map for yourself, because then the code just becomes really easy. Once you've got that that pipeline idea in your head, then it becomes really easy. Okay, so I'm going to take you through all of these. Okay, so for me, I'm just going to have a look at RSelenium. I just want to see something here quickly. There we go. Sorry, I used robot text earlier. I see I should have just used paths allowed. So I just have a quick look and say, okay, paths allowed, and I go to Vivino and I see that, okay, I can actually scrape the specific website. Okay, so we already have our driver open, so we don't need to redo that. Okay, so let's go to Vivino. So I'm going to navigate to Vivino. It's going to load. Okay, I want to see maybe if I can get it so I can show you the button. Okay, so does everyone's Vivino look like this? Even my AWS. Do you guys, does it look like this with a little button? Okay, yeah. Just go to explore. So just add the explore on, and then you'll skip a little step, but it's fine. Okay, so let's go back to Finder. Okay, so at least I can see now that my RSelenium is seeing the same thing I'm seeing, right? So step one, that's good, at least. Okay, so then I'm going to go on, press F12, and now I'm going to go look for this button, right, with CSS. Okay, so once you click on that button, you'll see it says it's class explore widget main submit button. Okay, and that is our key. So we need that CSS. So explore widget main submit button. So what I usually do is I just double click and then I have it. Okay, I add the dot in front to just say, okay, it's a class. And I'm going to use CSS to process it. There's multiple ways you can find elements. So you can use XPath, you can use CSS, you can use tag name, there's even ID. So once you get sort of a little bit more familiar with the tools available to you, I definitely think you guys should learn a little bit of XPath because it becomes quite powerful later on. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to use my driver. I'm going to find the element called explore widget main sub button using CSS. Okay, I'm going to have a look at it. Okay, I found something. How am I going to make sure that I found the right element? I'm going to highlight it. Okay, so highlight it. Okay, and we can see that element highlighting, right? So I'm confident that I have selected the correct web element, and then I'm going to say click that element. It's going to click it, and then we're on to the explore page. As we are. Okay. Everyone, yeah? Awesome. Okay, so let's learn a little bit more about the wine. Okay, so again, as I said earlier, a nice function to also have is make sure you have a nice function that can scroll to the specific objects, right? So it was fine on the previous page because we saw that that show wines button was in the view and couldn't be anywhere else. But now you might want to interact with something and it needs to be in the view of the browser. Okay, so we're going to build a function called scroll to, and you're going to pass it the driver and the element. Okay, and there's a nice little script that brings it into view. And I'm going to highlight it so that it scrolls to it and highlights it when I pass it this element. So it's nice and interactive and actually gives you nice feedback on whether you are correct or not. Okay, so I'm going to click here. There we go. Okay, so here's all the wines. Okay, but now you see that I have to actually scroll down to get to this little box over here that says countries. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first look for this element, find exactly what it is, and using F12, so developer tools and the inspector tool, I can see that this is something called input, and it's a class of filter, pulls, search, and then some dribble. Okay, so that is my key. So this class is exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, so if we're going to pass that along, Okay. So now I want to show you a little bit why I mean that XPath can be quite powerful. Okay, so if I use a very simple CSS, I can maybe struggle to find the specific object of this input class because of the sort of strange characters within the class naming. But with XPath, I have helper functions. So helper functions such as, okay, look for all elements, because I don't know how many of these things there really are, using XPath of type input, and the class is going to start with filterpools. Okay, and we know that because I looked for it in the web page, and we can actually see it over there. So once I do that, okay, I have a look at my web elements. Have a look at my web elements and I see, oh goodness me, wait, there's a couple of them here. So now I need to find a way of, isolating those specific objects. Okay, so let's have a quick look at what we actually captured. So there's that. So if I go to web element 1, where's that? Oh, sorry. Let's load this. Okay, so that is the search for grapes. Okay, that is countries as well. Okay, 3 is something else. So you can see that you can either do this manually and you can just sort of isolate the one you want, or you can be a little bit more clever about it. And for that, we can use a simple function such as I'm going to pipe my web element. I'm going to get it using something called get element text, right? Sorry, I need to actually identify this one. So I'm going to scroll to it. I'm going to get this web element. Okay. And then I need to look for Australia. I think this one's mad, sorry. I need to click it. Okay, so I've identified it. I scroll to it. I can click it. Sorry, there we go. Scroll to. Okay, click the element and then send keys Australia. Okay, so that's sort of me just filtering it out. But at the same time, I can also use this element text, which I've identified here. I think like this. There we go. Hold on. There we go. Come on. That's quite strange. Oh, okay. Now I see why. Okay, so that was me looking for the search bar. The other way I could have gone is I could have actually entered this element. Here we go. Could have scrolled down, and then I could have directly, instead of going into the search bar and having to search an item, I could have directly isolated the Australian box by hovering over it and seeing that, well, okay, this is class pillar inner 7GFK, which is exactly this element over here that I grep. I then grab that and I realize, oh, okay, there's like a million of these elements. And then I push that element into the web text. So sorry, so the first one I'm showing you, you can manually go about, you know, searching, and the second one I tell you, well, you know, you can actually just grab all of these elements using CSS, and then, you know, use a simple sort of get element text to actually find which one of this web element, which is, I'm going to show you now, which is a list of 27 items, is the one we're looking for. Okay, so it's 17, so we need to be able to get that, oh, this is web element 17. So we're going to take this, pipe this into this sapply, get the country element, and then we know that, okay, of all the items on this page with this, you know, pull inner 7G KFN, you know, there's 17 of them on this page, but we've identified that number 17 is actually the Australian one, and that's the one we want. So we're going to go back, and then we're going to scroll and highlight. Why? Because we want to make sure we have the correct element going. Okay, so there we go. So if we've got that, then we can click that element. Okay, so I'm going to take this, I'm going to say, okay, give me country element. Okay, so we know we've got the correct one, and I'm going to click that element. Okay, so now if we go back up, no. So I'm just going to scroll up quickly. Okay, so now we can see that there's 2,989 wines, you know, it's between $10 and $40, and it's only from Australia. Okay, so we're halfway there, So Selenium has done the heavy lifting for us, right? It's found the elements and it's clicked on elements, and now we have our nice little wines remaining. Okay, so now the trick is we need to go to the end to load more wines. So what are we going to do? We're going to use the scroll. So let me just make this bigger a bit. Okay, so I'm going to check. Okay, I'm right at the top. Okay, I haven't scrolled anything yet. I'm going to look at my document height. Okay, my document is 6,512 pixels. So I know how big my document is now. Okay, so, but I know that in real life, if I actually go to the bottom, it should load more. There we go, and there we go. And if I go to the bottom, it loads more. Go to the bottom, it loads more. Okay, so that's how this page is dynamically generated. So I know that for me, I'm only going to scrape the first 2 pages, and I'm not going to be too greedy. Important. And what I want to do is, I want to now go, I've got my heights to get like a starting reference, and now I'm going to go right to the end. Okay, that's there. Come on. Okay, so let's send end. Okay, so now let's have a look again on what do I see my document height is. So previously my document height was 6,512, and now it's 12,562. So awesome. Okay, so we know like RSelenium has done its job. We've loaded these pages, you know, we've loaded some wine, and now we sort of hand the baton over. Okay, and we're going to use we're going to take this object and we're going to use RVest now to actually do the rest. Okay, so we're going to build build this little collector up now in a few more seconds. Okay, so first of all, thank you, Selenium. We've grabbed what we wanted out of the page, and now we need to get it so that Rvest can understand it. So we're going to take rmdr, get page source. Okay, I'm going to pipe that into just extracting the first element, and then read HTML. And now we're back in Rvest. So now we've got an object, which is an XML document, and we can actually use this. Okay, so what are the first things I want to collect? Well, okay, I'm looking to collect the form. Okay, so for me, okay, I'm going to quickly just do this in my browser. So let's have a look. Okay, I've got Australian wines labeled. Okay, so I'm interested in the farm. So how do I do this? Back to F12. Okay, so F12, I'm in developer tools. I'm going to use my little selector, and there we go. Okay, so if you click carefully, you will see that we've highlighted and sort of isolated this element called vintage title winery 2YOIR or something like that, and we can see that it's the correct one because we can see there is St. John's Road. So what are we going to do? I'm going to extract that one, just copy that across. Okay, and I'm going to say, okay, so we've got HTML. What do I want to do? I want to get the HTML nodes. Let's see. Okay. So you can see, if I only say node, it's only going to bring back one of these wineries. We want all of the wineries. So we're going to say nodes, and then we're going to pipe this into HTML text. Okay, so take the page, get me the specific winery node, get me the specific text, and booyah. So here we have 50 wine farms and their specific names. So I'm going to call this farms. Okay, so that's farms. What's the next thing I want to check? Let's have a look. Next, the wine itself. Okay. So, having seen sort of how they go about naming the farms, you know, I've got quite a suspicion that it will have the word title or something, wine title. Okay, so there you go. So vintage title wine. Okay, so let's grab that one. So we're going to use that specific node to get that specific wine. I also find that those RStudio shortcuts come in handy here because you have to like replicate. So Control or Shift Alt up and down is like the replication. Okay, so that we must check. Let's see if we have our wines. Cool. Okay, so we have all our wines coming through, and we can even check. So we've got Shiraz 2005 on the wine farm called Henry's Drive. Okay, and we're going to check because sometimes things can go a bit haywire. Okay, I think I might be collecting other ones. 15 raids above. I think I might have filtered something else over here. That's fine. Okay, next, let's have a look. I'm going to get the rating and the rating count as the last bit of information that I'm looking for. Okay, so let's go back to Vivino. Let's get the rating. Okay, so also a really nice way that they actually identified this class for us so we know we're on the right track is Vivino rating-40ti. So again, I'm just going to copy this across, getting rating going. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Okay, but you can see that once we've extracted this, it sees it as a character. So we need to just take that and add that as a numeric. Okay, and I think the last one I'll leave for you guys. But the big thing I want to show you now is I'm going to take all my hard work that I've done, building these small little functions or smaller pools, and I want to put that into a single function called getPage. And we're just going to make a little table called farm wine rating. Farm not found. Farms. Okay. Okay, I'm going to call that, maybe let's call that collect wine. Okie dokie. So now, if I want, I can actually go and maybe do one more scroll, collect the page, and let's use our newly made function to collect the wine. Okay, so just to recap what I did, I collected sort of all the information in the page, and then made a nice little function called collect wine that goes and gets me the farm, the wine, the rating, and then brings back a nice little table for me with information. Okay, and this we can just call page wines. Farms. So it's quite mad at the moment. Let's have a look. Okay. $74. Let's have a bit of a look at why we can see this thing is going mad. That's strange. Okay, so farms, ready, wine, 75. Okay. So we're missing a wine farm somewhere. Okay, so we can't get the, so we're missing a wine farm somewhere. Ratings, 75. So something is strange with these wine farms. So I'm just actually going to say, I'm just going to add a little bit. I'm going to cheat, to be honest. And I'm just going to add a little bit, one extra on here, just because I don't want to play around too much at the moment. Okay. So see why I would recommend doing this in a loop. So if things like this start happening, you can actually address it and continue. Okay, so this should do it. There we go, didn't see anything. And now we have our full table called page wines, which I can actually go through now or take to the wine shop with me and get a better idea of the wines in the region. And that's with a bit of simple, very simple code. And I think that's it, guys. So any little questions? I think we have about 10 minutes. Anything you would like to see a little bit more? Anything that you'd like to explore? Learn a little bit more about nodes? Okay, I'll tell you what, for the last 10 minutes then, if no one has questions, yes?
So, related to this topic, I've had a debate with the guy who programs in Python. He reckons Python's a lot easier to web scraping than R. But I don't know Python, so I can't really debate that. But,
Okay, so in all honesty, I think it's easier, but with the easier comes things like the crawl delay, you know, where if you building it from the ground up, you can put in your own crawl delays, where with Python it does it automatically for you, you know. So, you know, that's sort of one thing that, you know, I think it's easier to scrape using Python if you're not familiar with websites. But for me, yeah, I like the R just purely because I can build the whole pipeline, because, you know, scraping is a very tiny bit of it. You know, I would say maybe 30%, 70% of it is doing the data munging. So if I can get sort of the data munging, you know, straight into my R, then, you know, I think the pipeline builds easier, to be honest. Yeah. So that's it for me. Yeah, it's one of those things where I think I am quite reluctant to say that I think it is a little bit easier in Python if you can code Python to get it going, because in R you have to build it up from scratch. But with the scratch comes knowledge about the web page, you know, what you're able to collect, and yeah, steeper learning curve.
This is the first time I've seen RSelenium. My impression is that it looks very fiddly. Do you have similar sort of challenges when you're using Python in comparison?
Okay, so Selenium, yeah, so what we have to know is that Selenium is actually a server. So you can even do, there's Selenium for Python as well. So RSelenium is actually just the way you react with or just communicate with Selenium itself. Selenium is actually Java. So a lot of the commands that we use today, you'll actually see. So Selenium, Java, web element, you know, click. Okay, so and the more you sort of start reading or going onto Stack Overflow, you'll start seeing or getting, you'll start, what is this? Oh, yeah, no, goodness me, I almost got trolled. Oh, bad internet. Okay, wait, let's go out here. Let me just try again. And you'll see that the Selenium way for writing the code is almost exactly the same. You know, you're also passing this element on top. Here we go. So it can, so there we go. So here you can see this idea of execute script. I'm using that driver, you know, my web element dot click, you know, so it's sort of it looks a lot the same. So yeah, so Selenium can be a little bit iffy in terms of it can get mad at you and the browser will just sometimes crash, but you'll have that across platforms, you know, just because you're interacting with the server itself.
One more question along this line.
No, that's cool.
Why did Cran drop RSelenium?
Because of a dependency called the binary man, because they said, oh, the package is not being updated, and thus we have archived that package, and because that package is dependency, you know, it all just came tumbling down, which is quite sad, I must say. I think the project has just started getting legs, you know, with the fact that you can now do Docker. So it was quite sad for me to see that, you know, okay, you know, we finally reached a stage where, you know, we can actually build on RSelenium and the project, and then Cran, you know, kicked it. So I think it'll have to be, someone will have to take the project over. I have seen people call for John Harrison and asking whether you know, he's able to help, or why is this happening. And then, you know, people are saying, you know, like, seeing the absence of the action of the author, I'm wondering if this package is still maintained, and so on. So it is quite strange that, you know, we haven't seen developments on this package since Cran has archived it. So you can see archived as of this because of dependencies. So yeah, I'm actually hoping someone actually takes this project a bit over, because I think it's used quite extensively in production. So I know a lot of people using RSelenium in production servers. including me, because of the way that it sort of interacts, and because of the fact that Docker is out now, you can actually use it, which is quite nice. So I'm hoping to see someone taking the project over, like a more senior dev guy in the next few months. Yeah, so this is like I want to say like 90% of the time you can identify static web pages through the sort of URL. So if the URL is something as obvious as this, so this is a PHP script, so they're just pretty much querying a database in the background and sending those parameters through, then it's a static page. And you can actually, there's something that's quite interesting about these sort of websites, right? So when I collected the sort of drug fields, I would iterate. So I would say, okay, increment start, and then keep on going. But you could have actually set this this max. You could have actually set that to like 6,000, and then all 6,000 rows would have been returned. So I always have a look at the URL and play around a bit with the page, and then see if the URL changes, because then I know how they built the page, and then I can use Rvest. Where I think with things like Vivino, when things we don't really get into today is, but you can actually see, what. So if I do this quickly, so if I'm going to refresh this, I want to actually see network traffic. So here you can actually check network traffic coming through, and if we have a look at the page, where's this thing now? I want to see if I can see the page coming through. You can usually get what the headers are, so what's getting sent through. So, if it's usually like a jumbled app like this, it's usually a token being generated from that specific browser, so that the information actually gets passed correctly. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a way to prevent or that shows is there a way to handle the websites that require you to authenticate?
Yes.
So basically would follow the same,
Find the element, click it.
and send your credentials.
Yeah, so I actually scraped my own wine. So just sign out here. So instead of just saying wine, you're going to look for this over here. Okay, cool. And you can see it's welcome. So, there's your little login. You're going to click on it and then follow the thing. So you will also see that when at the end of, this is one of the drugs here, at the end of this sort of thing where I say, added extras. So Vivino is a JavaScript-based website, but if it's not, if it's a static website, you can actually use sessions from Rvest to generate, like simulate a session, and then use the HTML forms. So, websites are like that idea of tables that's got a specific structure. A form has got a specific structure. An HTML form will actually pull that out for you. So if you're using forms, you can you can interact with these forms, combining this idea of a session and HTML form. So here's a simple example where I actually just search for something in Wikipedia, but this could be your login and password. But yeah, so obviously don't put it in plain text, rather save it as an environment variable, but yeah, you can go exactly the same idea. Yes?
So when an element is dynamically loaded, is the
Okay, yeah. So, so if you go do a little bit of googling, there's JavaScript. So, I think JavaScript is page, and I can't remember. It's like something like document done or document status or something. Okay, I don't know why it doesn't want to search now. But yeah, so the way, the way that I structured those queries where like I'm like executing, scrolling to and all of those like dynamic ones. Yeah, so you would pass that element again to the document, but I have found that it doesn't always work. Yeah, and also what you could do is you can just do a while loop. So you just, go look for the element. Does the element exist? No, sleep a second, look again, look again. Any more questions? Awesome, guys. Be safe. I don't want to hear someone scraping websites that are naughty. It does happen. But have fun. I think this for me is one of the funnest things to do. It's because like every website is a different puzzle. And every project you sort of approach will be in like a new way or in a funner way to actually see if how the website is put together. Anyway, I hope you have a brilliant user 2018 over the next, 4 days. Cool. Cheers, guys. Thanks. Oh, yes. Okay, sure. Give me 2 seconds. I forgot. I've got that big AWS machine running. I just need to spin it down before they charge me $1 million. Also, I'll be around. So if you guys didn't get my name, Hanyu, come and find me either over coffee or over beer. And we can chat a little bit about scraping and some of the projects I'm busy with and some of the things I've encountered.